Clash of Clans has so many different troops and spells that can be used to create thousands of different attack strategies, and as the game evolves, these attack strategies come and go. However, there seems to be one that has always been around and has maintained its spot as one of the most broken attack strategies in Clash of Clans. This is the Lava Loon attack strategy, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into the history behind it and how it has evolved over time. This strategy consists of two main troops, the Lava Hounds and Balloons, which is obviously how it got its name. The Balloons were around since the release of the game, but the Lava Hounds came out over 2 years later in September of 2014 and were unlockable at Town Hall 9. And they were the main reason this strategy was created. The Balloons were very slow and had little health, but they did a lot of damage in targeted defenses. This made them really good, but their biggest downfall was obviously their slow speed and low health, which caused them to die before being able to reach all of the defenses. This is why most attacks typically required the use of dragons with the balloons, since they would be able to tank for the balloons. But once Lava Hound was added, the dragons weren't needed anymore. The Lava Hounds were specifically meant for tanking since they had a lot of health, and they were also the only air troop that was designed for tanking like a golem or a giant. This made it so that you could place the Lava Hounds and then put the balloons behind them to make it much easier for them and solve the issue of them dying too quickly. Plus, the Lava Hound was also very unique since it specifically targeted air defenses, which meant that once you sent them in, they would go straight to the closest air defense and tank that. Obviously, they didn't do enough damage to be able to destroy the air defenses, but that's where the balloons came in. Once they had destroyed whatever defenses were before the air defense, they would then go and help the Lava Hounds in destroying the air defenses. And to help with the attack, people mainly used raid spells since they made the balloons even stronger and, more importantly, much faster. And this let them completely power through the enemy base. And during this time period when the Lava Hounds first came out, this strategy was extremely OP and had basically taken over the game for Town Hall 9 and up. And this would obviously lead to things trying to make this strategy weaker, one of them being anti-Lava Loon bases. This strategy was so widely used that people were making bases specifically against this attack, and the main focus was really on the air defenses. These bases typically made their air defenses as far apart as possible so that the army could be more spread out, which would then make it easier for the defenses to destroy the balloons. Another really good way to counter this attack would be to have some air troops in their clan castle, since both the Lava Hound and balloons wouldn't target them. This would force people to try and carry some other troops or find a way to bait the enemy CC so that your queen or maybe some wizards could kill them. But there's also a really big counter to this, and it was a Zap Lava Loon variation. This strategy was basically where you would carry lightning spells and use them to just completely destroy the enemy clan castle, which also got rid of the troops inside, meaning you didn't have to deal with them. This would eventually get patched in 2020 when they made it so lightning spells didn't damage the clan castle, but it is still pretty crazy how long this was possible for. But in April 2015, the Lava Loon strategy received what is probably its biggest nerf, which was the introduction of the Air Sweeper. This was the first defense in the game that didn't directly deal any sort of damage or hurt the troops in any way. Instead, it just pushed them back, which is what caused them to lose progress and give more time for other defenses to kill them. Plus, in the case of balloons, the Air Sweeper was strong enough to basically keep the balloons in an infinite loop where they were never fast enough to actually destroy the Air Sweeper. This defense definitely made the Lava Loon attack a little bit harder and made it so you couldn't exactly just spam your balloons anywhere. Though if there were enough balloons, then the Air Sweepers wouldn't be able to hold them back for too long anyways. A few months later, something else was added that has now created the modern Lava Loon attack, and this was the Haste spell. The Haste spell was similar to the Raid spell in that it made the balloons much faster, but it didn't give any sort of damage boost, though that didn't really matter with the balloons because of their high damage anyways. And to balance it out, the Haste spell was also only 1 housing space compared to the Rage, which was 2. The introduction of the Haste spell was also partly a reason for people just carrying lightning spells to destroy clan castles, since they could easily get the same utility as the Raid spell, but for less housing space. which then let them carry the lightning spells and not have to compromise on the attack itself. But for most people, the haste spells were a massive improvement because you could carry so many of them, and that would help last through the entire battle. And they were also really good for the initial push because you could just put so many down and their radius was smaller, which meant you could focus their attack more and have them follow right behind the lava hounds. And you could even haste spell the lava hounds, though they were already pretty fast. And people did still carry raid spells, mainly just to place down at the core of the base to get through it as fast as possible. Haste spells are probably the biggest change that really just made the Lavaloon strategy much better, as you pretty much never see a Lavaloon attack without a couple of haste spells nowadays. And while I've mainly been talking about how Lavaloon took over around Town Halls 9 and 10, they're actually used in every Town Hall level and are very effective. The strategy pretty much remains the same the whole time, but obviously has some variations with the different levels. One of these is the Queen Walk, which we all know is extremely OP. And by combining the Queen Walk with the Lavaloon, you get a really strong attack for the higher Town Hall levels. The Queen herself can take out quite a lot of defenses and basically clear a side of the enemy base, which then makes it easier for the Lava Hounds and Balloons, as they won't have to worry about that and can focus on getting rid of the rest of the base. The whole Lavaloon strategy is one of the most iconic strategies in the entire game, and that is why Supercell brought it back in the most recent Halloween event. They introduced a troop which is basically a combination of the Lava Hound and Balloons, and it is by far the strongest troop in the game. It is tanky like a Lava Hound, and also goes straight for air defenses, but in terms of damage it is like a balloon and just drops bombs along the way, meaning it always does damage. Plus, when it dies, it splits in a bunch of little pups like Lava Hound does. And it is also much faster than the normal balloons, meaning you don't really even need to carry haste spells. If you're playing Clash of Clans right now, you know just how much this new troop is taking over and just how OP it is. Many people often use it in a zap attack where they take lightning spells to destroy 3 or maybe even 4 air defenses and then send the balloons and some other troops in. You can then just run through the enemy base and take it down with ease. This is definitely the most broken strat in the game, and it is all based off of the Lavaloon strategy, which is one of the most popular and broken strategies in the game. And I really like how Supercell did this, since it really just proves the impact that the Lavaloon strategy had on the game and shows that Supercell acknowledges it. Let me know what you guys think about all of this, and if you think that the Lavaloon strategy is one of, if not the best air attack strategy in the game. The only other strategy I could think of coming close would be the E-Drags and Balloons.